case of Blake and London Deven, 1 year later. Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Megan Glova. We're looking back at the missing child case that turned into a murder investigation, plus what comes next in that case. Of course, WRAL's Chris Lovingood has really spearheaded this story. He joins us now. Chris, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So what are some of the biggest revelations, takeaways you've come across during your time covering this case since you first came across it?
Well, it's a lot, I think, is the biggest thing. This all started with, us learning about Blake's disappearance in late March of last year. And it just sounded so weird that day. I remember working that evening and said, Fayetteville police announced that they're looking into the disappearance of, this boy, Blake Deven. He was last seen, it was like a while ago, a year plus. But only recently had we learned about it. I was like, wait, that math doesn't math there. Mm-hmm. And that is what sent me down this rabbit hole. And I kept at this story because it just seemed off. And since that time, we learned about London Deven disappearing. We learned about who Avantae Deven is, her adoptive mother, how many children she adopted, how she was able to legally adopt 5 children from different counties across the state, her arrest in June of last year, interviewing a woman who says that she is the adopted daughter of Avantae Deven, and she's saying that Avantae Deven basically made her be complicit in the crime of hiding the Blake's body. So it's a lot. I mean, a lot has happened in the last year, and every time, and you and I have done this before, you'll ask me like, hey, so what is this, that, and the other? And I have to stop for a second because this is so much.
Oh, yeah. A lot to unpack.
I have a file where it's everything on this case. One of our colleagues suggested, hey, just keep everything together because you never know when you're going to need to go back, and it is. That has been very useful in terms of trying to keep all of the information straight with this. I'm even getting in, talking with Avantae Deven's ex-husband, him saying that, he learned about this lockbox that was in the wall with different IDs, et cetera. And then that matched up with the fact that investigators say Avantae Deven had different aliases and stuff. So there was I kept finding piece A, and then piece B would be confirmed later and say, okay, now we can put these two pieces together.
Right.
And you got to remember, Megan, like the trial hasn't even happened yet. Like we're only still in the investigation phase, which is, still ongoing until the trial actually happens. But it has been a very intense year. I will admit it has been a very emotional year. I'm about to be a dad myself. And that's something that I keep in mind in terms of, trying to ensure that these people who died, including, Blake when he was a boy, that they have a voice in some regard. And what I can do is keep at this story, keep asking questions, keep seeing what's the next part. Realistically, Fayetteville Police, this is a monster of a case. They have so much information they have to go through. And I would very much like to talk to them about the effort they've put into this, especially just how they're even able to make an arrest based off the information and the timeline as it was so scattered as it was. But no, the last year, Megan, it's been a lot.
Right. And it's not over yet. As you mentioned,
No.
That trial, it's still coming. We have at least a better idea of maybe when it's going to begin. What did you learn about that timeline?
So I talked with Cumberland County's District Attorney, Billy West, and I was just kind of trying to get an update on, where the trial is or when we could actually see a trial. And, there's only so much that he can reveal, obviously, since his office is prosecuting this case. But he essentially said, the first step right now is obviously investigators with Fayetteville Police. They are trying to get together this investigative file. It's a lot. They have a lot of information they need to put together. And then after they have this file put together, then they give it to Billy West's office. Billy West's office kind of looks over it, et cetera. They take it to, I believe the next process is they take it to a grand jury. It has to go from that spot, and then it goes to a superior court, and then it's there for several months. And then only after that, would it go to trial once it goes through the process? But I asked him, I said, realistically, when could we actually see this go to trial? And he said, at the earliest, most likely 2027. Is it possible it could happen before that? Sure, but he's just trying to be as realistic as he can, given the information about this, the amount of facts that are in this, the amount of investigation that they have to go through. Plus, you got to remember, they have other cases that they're working
Yeah.
on in their office. Not to say that this one's not important. Obviously, they're putting a lot of hours. He said they put so many hours into investigating this. And their hope is that by doing their due diligence, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, they're doing their part to make sure that when this actually goes to trial, they'll have what they need to go forward.
Right. And, I mean, the timeline is just when you think about the fact that investigators only learned of Blake's disappearance in, what was it, 2023?
Late 2023.
That's a long time.
It is, and that's why I've had people ask me, like, can you run me through the timeline? And I sigh for a second because, like, well, which timeline do you want? Do you want the timeline when we learned about it, or do you want a timeline of when this actually started?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was late in 2023, they received the mental health crisis call that sent them down the path where they first learned that one of the people in the home where the health crisis call happened said they hadn't seen Blake in years. And when he did see Blake had a broken arm. And that kind of sent things just on the trajectory where it ended up. And then we, as the press, learned about it on March 28th is the first one. And then we learned about the update with London Devon several days after that in early April. And then after that, we learned about the skeletal remains. I mean, the timeline in this story in terms of the investigative process, it's like you almost have to diverge it in two different lines because it's like what we know about as a press and then versus what they've learned on their end of it. And obviously when the trial actually happens, once we are able to get the evidence and see it all played out in court, we are going to have a more tightened timeline, most likely given the amount of effort the Fayetteville police have put into this.
Right. And, maybe we don't have an answer for this just because of the lack of information that Fayetteville police has been able to tell us. Of course, it's an ongoing investigation. But do we have any indication at what point they have enough information where they say our investigation is done?
I think on their end of it, I can't answer that specifically, but to my understanding, I mean, they'll present it when they present it, right? They have to do their due diligence because anything, and this is just observation from previous cases that are not related to this, but I mean, if the police don't do their due diligence, I mean, that could be something that works against the prosecution during the trial process. So, I mean, Fayetteville police, they are working very hard from what I understand. Like I said, I want to ask them some more questions that they're able to reveal, but they're tight-lipped right now, understandably so, because they're trying to protect the integrity of this case.
Yeah.
They've already put a year plus of work into this. So, saying too much right now could very well jeopardize the integrity of the case. And so, and my job obviously is to just ask what I can and try to get as much information as I can. And I try to be realistic in terms of, okay, will they actually talk about this? Will they likely talk about that? Because, I mean, Billy West could have said nothing. He could have, told me he didn't want to talk about it. But he at least is trying to be as transparent as they can, as police are. In Fayetteville police they have revealed as much as they can, including the aliases, et cetera. So I think sometimes people think when investigators aren't saying anything, it's like, well, what are they hiding? Well, no, they're trying to protect their case. And, as journalists, we got our ticker going off. We're like, well, is there a little bit more to this? And my ticker's not going off on this. It's just, this is a lot. And this is from me talking with how many people are related to this case, who I've done stories about, et cetera. So like this is a monster undertaking that they're going with, but that's why I'm taking it on, to make sure that I'm not forgetting about it. And the reason why I did this piece trying to figure out where the case is right now, because I have people asking, they'll message me on Facebook or TikTok, et cetera. Hey, where's that case at? Hey, what's happening with it? I haven't heard anything yet. And it's like, they need time. And DA West said that as much. They need time. And, the wheels of justice will turn as fast as they will, but it's saying, I know it sounds very cheesy, but I mean, it's real. Like they need time to do this and do it right.
I want to talk big picture. Jumping back to maybe what you've learned the past year. Anything, what has surprised to you or stood out to you about the North Carolina foster care system as a whole during all this?
Ooh, long sigh on that one too. I mean, that's the Deven case is what I took to, as you know, our documentary host and journalist, Kristen Severance. And I said, something is off here. Like, we learned about Avantae Deven being able to adopt 5 kids across 3 different counties. And reasonably, you want to ask, how did that happen? Especially because we were trying to figure out maybe education, et cetera. I think the first thing that I asked about was, wait a minute, these kids, why didn't the school district say something? unless they weren't in the school district, which they weren't. They were being taught under, quote, Deven Academy, which we learned about. I have documents about that as well. And but that sent us down, that sent me down the path of asking, like, where was the lapse here? Where was the lapse in oversight or responsibility, or whatever you want to call it, that would lead to these two people being tucked away? And that's when I started focus on the foster care system in terms of like, hey, was anyone checking up on them? Did anyone know their state of health at the time? And you got to remember that after you're adopted, if you're not receiving any benefits from the state has no reason to come in and do anything if they don't detect anything, suspicious.
Yeah.
That'd be like, someone having a kid and then randomly, DHHS showing up. Hi, we're going to check. No, like that's your child unless you do something wrong. But what we learned about it was, how was she able to do this? We learned the agency, grandfather homes that she went through to do this adoption. She did the required training hours. She got letters of recommendation, behavioral health, and all this you can find on WRAL.com. I'm actually trying to put something together that kind of encompasses all of this because it's so much. And like I sometimes get stressed because I'm like, I want to tell you everything, but then I forget about this part, that part, because it's so much.
Yeah.
But back to your original point about the foster care system, we just learned, as we've heard from lawmakers and we've heard from people in the system, it's broken. That's why we named the documentary Broken, Foster Care Children in North Carolina. And since our story has come out, we've done updates where lawmakers have come together on a bill to try to address some of these shortcomings, to try to put more measures in place to ensure that at the county level, they're getting the assistance they need, but also at the state level, they have the power they can to kind of step in and go, all right, well, what's going on here? And maybe look into some things where they can, because as it were, that wasn't necessarily the case. And there's even a whole lot with that update that I'm still trying to familiarize myself with, because in addition to doing this story and the foster care system, I have my other reports that I'm working on as well. So, I mean, it's been a lot, and the fact that we've already seen legislation being discussed a little bit with it, which they said they were already working on, obviously in the past, but we believe that it was our documentary that really exposed a lot of this out there and kind of made people look at it and go, hey, there are some things that are wrong. You have people on both sides politically that are saying things are broken and there must be a change. And as long as we did something that brought change, that's why we do what we do. That is why I became a journalist.
Definitely. And, maybe this is just another question where my wheels are churning in my brain. I don't know if we have an exact answer for it, but did the DA, is he kind of thinking ahead to the trial if failures within the foster care system are going to play into this trial at all?
I asked him that very question, and right now they are centering their focus on just the case as a whole. Will some elements of that come out? Maybe. I can't read his mind, but I did ask him that, and he said, right now they're just focusing on this specific aspect of the case, right? These murder allegations that are involved with it. I also asked, did he suspect any other charges to be filed as well? You may recall I did a previous story again where Cherish Deven, the adopted daughter who's still surviving of Avantae Deven, said that she was basically coerced into being complicit with this crime. And he said, no, right now they're just focusing on this specific defendant in this case. So there are a lot of questions I would love to ask a lot more, but again, they have to protect the integrity of this investigation. They're being very careful. He was very careful what he could and couldn't say. I was appreciative that he at least made the time to say something, because again, people are reasonably asking, what is happening? What's happening next?
Right. And I'll just end with, we keep saying it, that there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of information within a year, and we still have years to go.
Yes, and the trial hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah. So, any just final takeaways about this case or what you learned during your conversation that you want to throw in there?
What I'm gathering from investigators, at least from just, at least if I can say from Billy West, is people just like, they are working on this. And this is just me observing also, like, when you think about when Blake Deven reportedly went missing versus when new information come out, there is a gap of time in there. And the fact that they're reaching out to so many people going, hey, if you ever went to the house, if you ever went there for delivery or fix anything, et cetera, please come forward. Because when I see that, they are trying to find anyone who may have seen what was going inside this house. So if you only have fragments of information and you don't have the steady timeline, you have to build that. And this is a massive undertaking. That's why I have just been like, I guess, the word is like, I guess, blown away by how they were able to even make the arrest given the sporadic nature of this timeline.
Right.
But like I said, people are, for the people who have been asking me what is next, what is happening, what are they doing, they are working on it. I would very much like to learn more, but again, they are trying to protect the integrity of the investigation.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. We'll be looking for much more information on this in the months and years to come. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find Chris's coverage on the Deven case up now on WRAL.com, plus our documentary, Broken, Foster Care North Carolina, there as well. Thanks so much for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. I'm Megan Glova. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.